Boldwood presents The Resistance Girl, written by Jina Bacarr and read by Laurel Lefko. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. To all the brave and daring women of the Resistance, may their stars shine bright in the annals of history. Chapter 1. Sylvie. A Day in the Life of a French Film Star. Paris, 1943. I slide out of the shiny black Mercedes-Benz with two miniature swastika flags waving in the breeze. I feel a tug at my heart when I'm back here in the old neighborhood in the 11th arrondissement, filled with age-old ateliers, workshops devoted to the art of making beautiful things. A creative spirit lives on here from the days when workers crafted exquisite decor for the aristocracy. Golden doorknobs, Chinese silk wallpaper, gilded wood paneling. I inhale the smell of freedom, born here in the Faubourg Saint-Antoine during the Revolution. Now, the Germans occupy Paris, and it remains bottled up, waiting to uncork. The tension in the air makes me tighten my gut as I take in the familiar sights of the narrow passageway. The vine-covered walls, cobblestones polished with the patina of footsteps from the past, curious faces sneering at me through multi-paned windows, telling me I'm not welcome. I feel like a crushed rose in a bouquet. Still, I can't help but relive the days when I was young and innocent to the ways of politics. It's not something I'm proud of, but I can't ignore being chosen as one of Goebbels' select few in French cinema. Not if I want to survive. Before I can take a breath, the Nazi staff car is surrounded by an unruly crowd. I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee, or not so welcoming. Banging dented pots, waving a dead fish, holding their noses, I feel a rising frustration, not to mention a great hurt at their indignation, but I can't let anything sway my mission, or do anything that looks suspicious. I have a message to deliver right under the nose of the SS officer breathing down my neck. Besides, you never know who's watching you. I smile big, put my game face on, play to the crowd. After all, I am an actress. Bonsoir, mes amis. Je suis Sylvie Martone. We know who you are, I hear from the crowd. We don't want you here. The mood gets ugly when someone spits on the toe of my elegant black pump. I grit my teeth and ignore it, knowing my leather-soled shoe is another reminder of the hated German occupiers and the pain and sacrifice forced upon Parisians. I'm well aware they don't have enough to eat. They're obligated to observe curfews, and they patch the soles of their shoes with varnished wood. Unlike me. I dine at the Hotel Ritz, move about the city freely, and sport haute couture high heels courtesy of the studio wardrobe department. New leather shoes are impossible to come by, since the Germans requisitioned millions of pairs from the shops and boutiques to send to the Vaterland, a phrase I hear often from my handsome escort, Captain Karl Lunze, an SS officer from Berlin, decorated hero to hear him tell it, avid sportsman, and trusted aide to a top Nazi Wehrmacht commander stationed here in Paris. He wears his status well as an officer, in a finely pressed, gray-green uniform, along with a Luger pistol in his belt and black leather gloves. A tall, lean man with his bright blonde hair cut so short on the sides it bristles. He has a fetish for carrying a polo whip with a brown leather handle, which he is quick to use at the slightest provocation. He's glued to my side like a postage stamp I can't get rid of. I pretend not to notice the spontaneous gesture of defiance on my poor shoe. Karl is not so forgiving. Get back in the motor car, Sylvie. It's not safe for you here. Don't be ridiculous, Carl. I toss back at him, then grab a tied bunch of yellow daffodils from the leather seat of the luxury motor car parked near the carriage gate. I keep my smile, but my voice low, so only he can hear me. These are my fans. I must insist, Liebling. I pat his arm, and then wet my lips. I'm not going anywhere. It takes every ounce of self-restraint I have left to keep smiling, not lash out at my old neighbors for putting my mission in jeopardy. The bigger I smile, the more tension I feel, my body vibrating with a familiar anxiety, similar to what comes over me when someone forgets their lines and I have to improvise, and do it fast. But this is no movie set. The fools. Don't they know the whole lot of them could be shot? I quiet my breathing, sway my shoulders to catch Carl's eye, knowing that although he exhibits meticulous manners around me, he's an SS officer, known for inflicting justice on anyone who challenges his authority. I cringe, remembering earlier today when we rushed out of Aux Deux Magots Café after raising a toast to the premiere later of my new film, Le Masque de Velours de Versailles, The Velvet Mask of Versailles, his Nazi cohorts downing beer after beer. I couldn't ignore the note slipped under my plate at the cafe, demanding my immediate attention. The flower of the day is yellow daffodils. I froze. The color of danger. A change of plans. I couldn't let my fear show, alert Carl anything was amiss. The late afternoon sun cast the perfect light on my skin, my black fedora cocked at a right angle as I smiled and asked the dashing lieutenant sitting across from me to film us with my home movie camera. A spontaneous whim on my part to allay suspicion from my actions and keep up my act in front of my German admirers. That only attracted more attention. I couldn't escape the press, eager to photograph France's beloved actress Sylvie Martone with her new Nazi friends. As a newsman snapped a photo of us posing in front of the silver Mercedes, all I could think about was, Emile will love all this publicity. Then we raced off, headed to the private screening, but not before the SS officer harassed a poor soul crossing the street who failed to get out of the way, forcing the staff car to hit the curb. Without a backward glance, Carl bolted out of the car and struck the man's face with his whip, drawing blood. My adrenaline spiked, my sense of decency pushing me forward to help him, but the deprecating look on Carl's face stopped me. I did nothing, and for that, I'm ashamed. When Carl got back into the motor car, he chatted about his last post in Warsaw as if nothing had happened. How ugly the city is now, in ruins from the fighting, and how grateful he is Hitler spared Paris, and she retained her beauty. Like you, Fraulein, he was quick to add, kissing my hand and glaring at my breasts, straining through the silk. I answered him with a wide smile, playing my part as his companion. I didn't dare show any indication of the unpleasant sensation that hit me when he touched me. No wrinkling of my brow or teary eyes, only a forced smile, a difficult moment. He'd take any show of unpleasantness as a sign of my distaste for der Führer, something I wasn't careful enough in the past to disavow. It took me a while to convince the captain I find being in his presence most attractive. I can't afford to let anything get in the way of that, even the natural changes my body is experiencing as a new life grows within me. A secret I must keep from Carl, my fans. I never expected this at 33, quite an inappropriate time for it to happen to me, but I feel blessed. I talked Carl into stopping at a flower market along the way so I could greet fans and boost awareness of my first film opening since the occupation, then pass by my old apartment in the Faubourg Saint-Antoine before heading to Le Grand Rex. He seemed to genuinely enjoy mingling with the curious onlookers, smiling and nodding at us. He took a daffodil from the bunch I bought and handed it to the elderly madame selling the blooms, telling her in decent French she reminded him of his grand-mère. I regarded him with a wistful sigh. For a moment, he seemed almost human. I soon wiped that attribute from his slate. He is and always will be a Boche, a not-so-flattering term for the German occupiers. Now, wary of jeopardizing my mission, my body shakes with uncertainty at how to deal with this spitting incident. My nerves are getting to me. My stomach plummets, and I swallow down a bout of nausea. I have only myself to blame. I knew suggesting we come by here might put me in a heartbreaking dilemma. I swallow hard, hoping Carl doesn't grasp the intensity of my toothy smile. Even when I don't feel it, I act the part, never forgetting how hard I worked to get here. It's important to me to show the people of Paris I'm still their Ninette. That doesn't stop me from feeling like an imposter. Tears sting my eyes as I wonder what happened to the memorable character I created in silent film serials back in the late 1920s. I keep asking myself, how did I, Ninette, end up holding on to the arm of an SS officer? Nuzzling up to the Nazi swine like a she-hound in heat, the foul smell of his deeds rubbing off me and staining my soul. These Parisians staring at me were once my neighbors when I was starting out in pictures. I lived here back then, at number 23, a 3-story, white stone building with ivy climbing up the walls and a hand-carved blue door. They helped make me a star, drank rich espresso with me on cool mornings while they acted out their favorite scenes from my early films. Before I became box office gold, according to Emile, the director who discovered me as a teen. Now, they hate me. 10 or 15 hearty souls gather around me, staring, waiting for something dreadful to happen. I let my gaze wander over the motley group, knowing their foibles, like the baker's wife with the big laugh, or the wizened cabinet maker, or the aging soubrette, and the teenage girl with freckles and glasses, her mother using her broom to sweep her daughter inside whenever a lad smiled at her, all waiting for the deadly reprisal of the SS, the smirk, the arrogance, followed by a keen shot from a Luger or a public beating. I feel the intensity of their foreboding, believing someone will be singled out to pay for the rash deed of spitting on my shoe. No one runs. That would define them as the guilty one. Instead, they wait. Their angst hangs heavy in the air as I step forward, my arms filled with daffodils tightly bound with coarse string. I ignore the shiny spittle on my expensive shoe as I look up and down the cloistered passageway. The inhabitants of the Faubourg Saint-Antoine do their best to keep out the distasteful flags of the Third Reich, for whatever happens outside, German soldiers have no reason to wander in here. No brothels, no tobacco shops. The street seems untouched by the occupation, its secret passageways revealed behind black iron doors you only have to swing open if you know the secret. And thank God, the soldiers in gray-green and black hobnailed boots don't. "Shall I arrest them all, Sylvie?" Carl brandishes his whip, cracking it against the stone wall washed clean of the blood of the revolutionaries. The sound is as chilling as if he were striking bare flesh. I abhor his show of power, like he's a bully on a school ground. The younger ones clap their hands over their ears. The women make the sign of the cross. The men shield them with their bodies. I draw the line here. "No, Carl," I say in a clear voice, laying my hand on his arm. "These are my fans. Whatever happened is merely a mistake, n'est-ce pas?" I scan each face, my eyes pleading for them not to make things worse. "We're not your fans anymore," comes a daring speech from a woman with a baby on her hip, her blue apron soiled and dirty. I still like your movies, spouts a girl of about 15. Her eyes sparkle with admiration for a moment. Then she holds her nose and furrows her brows. I don't like him. She points to Carl, who steps forward, forcing the girl to jump back into the crowd, who form a protective barrier around her. That girl needs to be taught a lesson. She doesn't understand, Carl, how hard you and Herr Goebbels are working to keep the French culture alive. There's no one more hated in Paris than Goebbels, the minister of propaganda for the Reich. Holding the bouquet with my black suede-gloved hand, I continue. That's why we're here, to invite them to see my new film. What's the name of your film? The 15-year-old dares to peek her head out. I grin. Ah, the audacity of youth. I remember it well. Le Masque de Velours de Versailles, I answer, with an eagerness that lightens the mood. I project my voice to the crowd so everyone can hear me, keeping my tone upbeat, a bit sugary, not squeaky, like I'm doing a voiceover to promote my films. It's the story of a milkmaid in the Sun King's court who becomes a spy when she catches Louis's eye and then saves her little sister from a nasty sultan's harem. Wild escapades of a heroine rising up against authority. Exactly what moviegoers want these days. I hope you'll come to see it when it opens next week at the Gaumont. Undaunted by the tension in the air, I dig into my jacket pocket, grab some tickets, and wave them above my head. Oh, yes, please, the perky girl with the glasses and freckles holds her hand out, but her mother grabs her by the arm and pulls her back. You ain't taking nothing from that woman, she spews in a husky voice. Her square face is flushed, gray hair escaping from the plaid scarf wound tight around her head. She ain't the Sylvie Martone we used to know. Her words are harsh, but her eyes betray disappointment, and that hurts me the most. I've always prided myself on being an actress who can make an audience cry and bellow with laughter, who can incite intense anger as they stare at me up on the silver screen, but never disappointment in my performance, never walk away shaking their head. Now it's because of my acting ability they turn against me, and therein lies the hurt. I can't tell her the truth. I leave the movie tickets sitting on a nearby wrought iron table, knowing full well the children will grab them after I'm gone. Behind me, I hear whispering. I know what they're thinking as I walk up to number 23 and knock on the weathered wood. Then again, no one answers. I turn. Where is Fantine? A rhetorical question. Only I know why Fantine won't answer the door. She's too ashamed to show her face, mademoiselle, says the woman, leaning on her broom, with the likes of him stinking up the street. Her proud, lined face sets into a sneer, her short, pudgy nose wrinkling with distaste. I hear Carl snarl like a hungry tomcat. My arms filled with yellow daffodils. I step forward when I see him reach for his Luger. Not so fast. If I have to play this part, I may as well use it to my advantage. These are my people, even if they hate me. I'll not let him make them any more miserable than they already are. Please tell Fantine I brought these yellow daffodils to cheer her up. My whole body is tingling, though fatigued. I find it harder to keep up the pace I'm used to. I pray my hormones adjust, and I don't make a fool out of myself. Though I'm thrilled with the changes within my body, it's got to remain my secret. I have to act the movie star, deal with the insolence of the crowd. They don't want me hanging around their neighborhood, even if I own the apartment and hired a woman to take care of it. A woman they adore. Fantine is a charitable ex-baroness, twice widowed, with a raspy voice, a kind-hearted soul with a limp, giving them cheese she commandeers from the black market, watching their babies when they have to queue up for bread, always ready with a cheerful tune to lift their spirits. No wonder she doesn't want to come out when her employer is hated so much, they say to themselves. I fight to keep smiling, knowing why Fantine can't show her face. But they'll never know my secret. I'll place the daffodils outside for her. I lay them on the neatly kept stoop. It's important she gets the flowers. You may leave them, mademoiselle, says the woman with the broom, only because they're for Fantine. Merci. I nod. I feel confident the blooms will remain undisturbed until a pair of large, steady hands removes them. The message received. A life depends on it. The locals would never reveal what happens here after curfew, thanks to the pride instilled in them since so many who fight against the Nazis call here home. I grin. Mission accomplished. I slip my arm through Carl's. Come, Carl. We'll be late for the premiere. Cheers at our departure. Then more jibes tossed at me. By heckling me, my old neighbors in the working-class district perform their parts well. For that, I'm grateful. Or lives will be lost, including the man I love. As the big silver Mercedes races through the winding streets on the right bank, I break into a sweat. I lean forward and hold on to the door handle as the touring car enters the traffic circle, then makes a sharp right onto the Boulevard Voltaire. My stomach turns, but I can't reveal to the handsome SS officer sitting next to me why I feel faint. All that matters is in his eyes, I'm Sylvie Martone, film star and Nazi collaborator. I can never let him believe otherwise. Chapter 2. Juliana. A road not traveled. Till now. Los Angeles. Present day. Rain splatters against the bay window, echo my heavy pencil strokes. I grip the number 5B drawing pencil so tight, the point breaks off. I heave out a deep sigh that's got me so coiled up inside. I can't shake this unbearable loneliness that's swept over me, like I'm alone in the world without her. Maman. She was my whole world these past 2 years, my life taking a detour to care for her. The end came all too quickly, and I'd give anything to have more precious time with her, but I can't. I have to pick up the pieces and pretend I'm fine when I'm not. She never judged. She was always there for me. Now, she isn't. And it hurts. I was her round-the-clock caregiver, but at the end, when she looked into my eyes, she didn't know I was her daughter. She told the nurse before she died, "She's the pretty lady who takes care of me." I denied the subtle changes in her personality for months. Maman, I always call her that, since she was born in France, started showing signs 2 years ago, but I never expected the downward slide to happen so fast. I watched my kind, intelligent mother lose control of who she was, the blankness in her eyes, the unsteadiness in her walk. That was coupled with times of complete lucidity, brilliance almost, a portal in her mind opening for the briefest time to give me hope. Then see it dashed when the door slammed in my face. Finally, my mother fell into a calm sleep, taking in oxygen through a tube from an ugly green tank I grew to hate because it was taking her from me. Breathing slower, then slower, as if she knew the end was near. Maman, how I miss you. I want to tell her my news about my new job, and I'm angry she's not here. No wonder my mind is wandering this morning like a spool of thread come undone. I feel like a lost chord without a song. Sketching is my haven, a place I can call home, an anchor to find the road forward again, which is why I've spent the past hour fidgeting with this retro costume for an upcoming 60s TV drama, Wings Over Manhattan, working on the design for the blue and white flight attendant uniform. I spend a long time thinking about a design before I pick up my pencil, then sketch it quickly, the curves and lines appearing almost magically like an animated film clip. My meetup with the producer isn't for another 2 weeks, yet I've got it into my head that I have to finish the sketch right away. A penance, I suppose, when I should be trying to move on. I jam the pencil into the automatic sharpener, the eerie whir jarring my nerves. I could venture out into the rain, to the art store, and buy another one, but the idea of sloshing through LA streets that see rain twice a year isn't inviting. Yet the longer I stare at the sketch, the more I need to share my feelings. I'm not into grief groups, and I'm not close with the people from Maman's life before she retired to move in with me. I walked through her funeral last week like a puppet on strings, picking up one foot then the next, but feeling numb inside. I have no family and few friends I can count on in my crazy world designing costumes for TV. Apart from Ridge McCall, who never left my side. I can't help but smile, remembering how we met our first week of college when we bumped heads in the darkroom in photography class. I couldn't believe this incredible guy with the gorgeous smile noticed me when the lights were on. He had a hot reputation since he'd already racked up movie credits as a stuntman and had every girl in class drooling over his muscular bod. Imagine my shock when he went out of his way to sit next to me in class, and then when he picked me for his partner for field trips, saying I had a good eye for color and style and I should follow my dream to be a costume designer. He caught me doodling costume sketches in class. And then when he asked, would I mind riding on the back of his motorcycle? I liked him right away, and we ended up getting amazing shots on film from the beach to the desert and cutting up doing it. We became great pals, pulling pranks on each other, like hiding canisters of film or shooting goofy poses to loosen up our creativity. I was so busy working and drawing and studying, I never thought about dating him. We had too much fun together to screw it up. He'd listen to me talk about my crushes. I'd comment on the long list of girls impressed by the stuntman in the stonewashed jeans and tight tee with James Dean eyes. Somewhere along the way, we eased into being a comfy twosome. We don't talk about our dating lives anymore. I don't have one, not since I started taking care of Maman. No regrets there. Ridge? I don't know. Maybe he's got a girl. If so, he doesn't talk about it. Either way, I'm lucky to have him for a best friend. Maman always smiled when the handsome stuntman brought her fresh flowers and kept her mind busy extolling his exploits on film as a dashing swordsman or crashing a tank through a wall. I know she wondered about us, but I told her we decided long ago not to ruin a beautiful friendship by getting involved. I pick up my cell to text him, pour out my heart to him like I've done for years when I need a strong shoulder to lean on, then put it down. He's already done so much, walking me through the steps of taking care of her affairs and sitting with me for a long while when we came back to the bungalow after the funeral so I wouldn't have to be alone. I can't bug him. He's knee-deep working on a big archival assignment for a stock footage company with over 100 years of film in its vaults, a gig he's worked long and hard to get. I respect that. That doesn't help this bout of loneliness I can't shake. If only I had family here, someone who knew Maman, someone who'd laugh with me about how she'd let her glasses slide down her nose when she was happily surprised, or how she insisted on having a box of chocolate nonpareils on her birthday every year since the sweets reminded her of idyllic days growing up in a French convent outside Paris. I've never been to France. Always had a job since high school, including working as a tour guide at a major movie studio. I was born in California, but grew up speaking both English and French. I'm 36, and I know zilch about my Gallic roots. I never thought about it till now, which brings me to the matter of Maman's possessions. My study is like most parlor rooms in these 1930s-style Spanish bungalows on the west side, built in a time when hanging multicolored beads separated it from the main house. It's become a convenient storage room, since I work on my laptop on the veranda on sunny days, or sit on the love seat under the bay window, steadying the old artist's wooden board I've had since college on bent knees. My work habits make it easy for me to avoid this room. And what's in it? Anything and everything that belonged to Maman, sealed up like holiday presents with perfectly aligned tape and shipped over from my mother's apartment in Santa Clara. Boxes that have sat here untouched, which saddens me. When she first came to live with me, we talked about going through her things, but I could see she didn't want to, as if by opening these boxes she'd have to come face to face with the reality she was no longer that person. Worse yet, she may not have any memory of what she saw, and she'd feel empty inside. Even if memories are rose-colored, we cling to them because they give us pleasure, as well as the courage to go forward in hard times. If she couldn't remember, she'd have neither. So I abided by her wishes to wait for the day when she felt strong enough to accept whatever she found, waited for a day that never came. I didn't have the heart to go through the boxes without her. I kept avoiding it, telling myself I was too busy with the day-in, day-out routine, taking care of Maman with a strong mind but a lonely heart, as if, by going through her things, I'd have to relive watching her fade away all over again. I know what her last wishes were regarding her personal things, and I admit I've been remiss in carrying them out, something Ridge and I talked about yesterday over lattes at the gym, not far from the studio. "I worry about you since your mom died, Juliana," Ridge said when I found him throwing quick jabs at a heavy punching bag. Tall, dark, gorgeous, engaging his entire body as he hit the bag like he was hell-bent on turning it into a pile of sawdust. Yet he was a man who sang lonesome cowboy songs off-key, could lift twice his body weight, but also had a tender place for me in his heart I sometimes took for granted. I felt guilty bugging him, but I needed to talk. "I'm good, Ridge. Sort of." I straddled the black leather bench and put down the steaming mocha lattes I'd picked up while checking out the amazing abs on this man who works out every day at 6 a.m. like clockwork. I'm, well, confused. "Join the club. You're going through a big transition. Like me." He punched the bag, and the sweat rolled down his face and made his bare chest shine bronze and gold under the hot lights. I'm not immune to his appeal. I just don't go there in my mind. I don't want to be another groupie. Ridge is a legend in the world of stunt work and the recipient of numerous awards for his contributions to the industry and high-risk stunts. He doesn't talk about himself, but it pains me to see how he's struggling to accept the fact that at 40, time is catching up with him. I've watched him perform on the set, and the man is a warrior god in action. When it's time to go to work, his head is in the game, and he never gives up. Last year, he cut back on his stunt work to focus on his future. He's been in the business since he was 16. He's quick to admit you can only get set on fire or die by the sword so many times. I couldn't believe it when he told me he had a new gig as a film archivist. It's been his dream for a long time to ensure the films highlighting the greatest stunts from the early silence to the present aren't lost, but preserved for the next generation of stunt performers. I've been so wrapped up in my problems with Maman, I didn't realize I'd gone into a strange shell of my own. Which was why I'd showed up this morning. I needed a pep talk. "For years, I ignored my fears," Ridge continued. "Let the adrenaline override everything else. Pushed forward and got the job done." He punched the bag so hard, The sweat on his face spurted into the air. Then I got hurt, and reality hit me like a steel drum. It took me a while to come to terms with my vulnerabilities. I'm not afraid to jump out of a plane or leap onto a moving train. I am afraid of letting down my team. And that means you, Juliana. You're always there for me when I do something stupid, or how you make me talk about something that happened on a shoot I don't want to talk about. I won't let you down now. You talked about how you've been avoiding letting go of the past, moving on. Don't run from your past. Embrace it. The hardest part about doing a stunt is that moment before you make the jump. If you think too much about it, you'll make a mistake. If you get nervous, that's when you get hurt. Just do it. Make your decision and go with it. My talk with Ridge about finding the courage to move on has fueled my energy in a new direction. I've put this off too long. So why not start on a rainy afternoon? I'm working on the designs for a show that takes place around the time Maman was a teenager. Maybe I'll get some inspiration from her for the uniform for my Friendly Skies attendant. I smile. I like that idea, as if she's helping me move on. I push down the deep ache in my chest, heave out a big, cleansing breath. Then I put down my coffee cup and get to work. It's time, Maman. My mother, Madeleine Chastain, was just a baby when Paris was liberated in 1944. But the demure Frenchwoman always put off talking about her family when I asked her, waving her hand about like she was signaling someone unseen to go away, lest they spill the beans. A ghost, perhaps. To my knowledge, Maman's family were all killed in the war. That didn't excuse her lack of une famille in my eyes. When I asked the faculty staff who came down for the funeral if she ever mentioned any relatives in France, they shook their heads. I admit I was too distraught over her death and exhausted from the toll caregiving took on me to go searching any further. I wonder if I should have. She must have someone I can write to, talk with about my mother's last few years, her downward spiral into a deep depression that made her believe she was a burden to me. She once said something I tucked away in my mind, that I'd have enough to bear if I ever found out about her. Who she was talking about, I never figured out. Maman never spoke about my grandparents, insisting they died in the war. As a teenager, I spent hours conjuring up a fantastic tale of them being resistance fighters, brave partisans fighting the Nazis, but making sure their daughter was safe with the nuns, since they'd most likely be killed before their country was free again. I'd come up with various looks, but my favorite was a sketch of my grandmother, outfitted in partisan chic, pencil skirt, silky cream blouse, knee-high brown suede boots, and a bomber jacket, cinched in at her waist, a deep navy beret pulled down over one eye, her lips bright with a sizzling red lipstick. So unlike my mother. I often tried to get Maman to add a necklace or earrings to her ensemble, but she always pooh-poohed the idea, saying she was a convent girl at heart. After all, glam is my business. Giving actresses the right cut on a dress, the fit of a pair of jeans, the angle of a hat. The retired art history professor never deviated from her black suit, crisp white blouse, low pumps, and square glasses. These memories of Maman and fantasies of my grandmother are all I have to cling to. I realize now I avoided a lot of things in my life because I was too busy following my dream of making it in Hollywood. In college, I was picked as the model for the movie studio tour ads, though I never saw myself as an actress or beautiful. The only thing I can lay claim to as anything interesting about my face is the deep dimple on my left cheek. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved to draw. Stick figures in my mother's textbooks, making clothes for my Barbie, working on costumes for school plays. I do visual storytelling, designing costumes specific to that character, and give it the cinematic flair to work on the silver screen. Maman didn't understand my love for design or the movies. She loved her history books and her students and rarely talked about anything else. I never pressed her about where we came from, and she seemed happy I didn't. My mother was such a private person, so careful with saying and doing the right thing. Even her handwriting was precision perfect. I never wanted to look behind the curtain and see otherwise. No wonder I feel empty inside when it comes to knowing my roots. I suck in a sharp breath and take the plunge to find out. Let the unpacking begin. I take my time and rearrange the boxes I've kept stored here in my study. I do the smaller ones first, blowing off the dust coating the brown cardboard, cutting the tape with scissors with a reverence that doesn't surprise me, taking my time with each packed box as if Maman is watching me, nodding her head in approval. I go through her possessions with a careful eye, my heart pounding, looking for clues about my roots in each box. Nothing yet, no wild revelations, but with every box I open, every memory I find helps me cope with her loss. Still, my curiosity tugs at me to find out more about her, to fill in the gap of where I came from. I'm delighted when I find a sealed box of letters written by my parents. I never knew it existed. Maman told me years ago my father was American, but my parents never married. How they had this long-distance love affair that culminated when my mother came to America to have her baby, me. After skimming several letters, I wipe away a tear, feeling the deep love between them. But there's no hint of my mother's family, like she was born without a past. I find photos of me as a baby, then from my childhood since I grew up in a time before everything went digital. First communion, dressing up for Halloween, teenage angst years where I shied away from the camera. I love handling these glossy 4x6 prints. The color is vibrant as a scene out of Oz. Then I find old movie camera tapes I gave her of my trips to San Francisco and New York for location shoots. Cities Maman loved to visit with me. Nothing here that says anything about her life before she settled in California, except for a few letters in French, letters from the convent where my mother lived until she met my father, signed by a nun named Sister Rose Celine. I put the letters aside, looking for something about my mother as a young girl. She was 40 when I was born. She must have had a life before me, relatives somewhere. But nothing. Even her finances were straightforward. Bills, savings, retirement checks every month. I admit I was pleasantly surprised when I discovered Maman left me a generous stipend, which I'll save for a rainy day. Or that vacation I never went on. While my mind is flirting with the idea of tropical breezes and white, sandy beaches, I'm attracted to a square box that's different from the others. Elegant wrapping and neatly tied string with an elaborate knot. The box is inside a bigger box, hidden under out-of-date clothes. A convent uniform, gray, linen jumper, white blouse with a Peter Pan collar and short sleeves, light blue sweater. The scent of a lovely French perfume, wafting from the closed-up box, makes me sigh with delight. Rose. Then plum, is it? And raspberry? And a spice I can't identify. A provocative scent in stark contrast to the uniform. Under the clothes I find a thin box from Aux Trois Quartiers department store in Paris. Ooh, how very French. The old tape is yellow and crumbles between my fingers as I look inside. There, wrapped in an ivory lace veil, woven with the most delicate design, I find a slim burgundy velvet jewelry box. My hands tremble as I open it. My mother never wore jewelry. Who does it belong to? I open the jewelry box and discover a gorgeous, heart-shaped diamond pin. with an arrow through it. And something else, a photo of a striking platinum blonde that takes my breath away. The startling moment makes me queasy. I have a queer feeling I'm looking at something I shouldn't, but I can't look away. The woman looks like a star from the era of classic films. An actress or model? The staging, pose, hair, and makeup are very theatrical, as opposed to the look of high society. My gut and experience tell me this is a publicity still used in a press kit. I stare at the black and white photo, a woman bigger than life, a woman hypnotizing anyone under her spell. Gorgeous wavy hair falling over a bare shoulder, a low-cut, slinky gown hugging her body, smoldering eyes that burn with a passion that speaks of forbidden nights and unspoken desires. I swear the woman is wearing the same diamond heart pin with an arrow through it I hold in my hand. A coincidence? A funny itch crawls up my spine, making me tingle. Or is it? I look through the box, but find no other photos. Who is this beautiful woman? I pride myself on my knowledge of stars of classic film, but I don't recognize her. Why did Maman save the picture? The imprint on the lower right corner indicates the photo was taken in Paris, most likely before the war and before my mother was born. Also written in white ink is a number, most likely the photographer's index code, since it's too long to be an address. I turn it over and see an inscription on the back of the photo written in French. To my sweet daughter, Madeleine, someday you will know the truth. I go into complete shock, hand shaking, heart pounding as I stare at the photo. This gorgeous blonde with the seductive smile is my grandmother? It can't be true. Can it? I look again. Under the inscription, she wrote, Ville Canforterre, France, and the year 1949. After Paris was liberated. After my mother said her parents were killed. Who is she? I realize I've stumbled across a secret I was never meant to find. That I had a glamorous grandmother who survived the war. What happened to her? And even more upsettingly, why did my mother lie to me? Chapter 3. Sylvie. A star is born. Ville Canforterre, France, 1926. A loud, roaring crescendo coming from the old church organ draws me to sneak inside the stuffy movie theater. I'm missing the best part of the film. The heroine is tied to the railroad tracks and is about to get run over by a train. Or a rogue sea captain is holding her tight in his arms and proclaiming his undying love. I slide my fingers over the lever at the back door entrance and giggle. It's unlocked. I pull down the lever when, "Your ticket, madame," a man grumbles behind me, insistent, coughing. I turn, smile big, showing him my teeth, smudged with burnt ash. "It's me, Monsieur Durand, Sylvie." "Ah, but of course, my Sylvie." He winks. "I didn't recognize you, mademoiselle." He's lying, but it's a game we play. "Merci, monsieur. What do you think of my disguise?" "Wonderful, Sylvie." Claude Durand is quick to add, "You're as good as any actor I've seen in pictures." I strike a dramatic pose with my nose up in the air and wild hand gestures. He laughs. I like him. He's a good-hearted old soul who turns a blind eye to my escapades. "Ah, you've got a fine talent for pretending, mademoiselle." He lights up a Gauloise and draws it deep into his lungs. I frown. I wish he'd stop smoking. His cough is getting worse. "I saw that in you the first time you snuck into my theater and tried to convince me your little sister was lost and had wandered in. You were, 13, no?" "I was just a child then, monsieur." I stick out my chest. "Now I'm a woman." His eyes turn serious. "Even an old braggart can see you've got a real talent for mimicking those actresses up there on the screen, Sylvie. You're better than the lot of them. Be careful of those who take advantage of you. You're a beautiful girl, and with that angel white hair of yours hanging down your back in that long braid, you make an old man wish he were young." I feel my cheeks tint pink as I push back wisps of unruly hair sticking to my forehead and sling my braid over my left shoulder. "You flatter me, Monsieur Durand, but I'm not interested in men of any age. Only acting." He puffs on his cigarette, thinking. "Then follow that road, and don't look back, no matter where it takes you." He exhales a perfect ring of smoke, then smiles. "Now, get on inside the theater before the picture is over. It's one of your favorites, Mesdames en Feu." He chuckles and opens the door of his private entrance, then bows from the waist, inviting me in. "Free of charge," he insists, as always. I sometimes think he believes I'm his lost daughter. He's always warning me to watch out for bad men with pretty bedtime stories, promising me fame and fortune, but I don't mind, because I know he speaks from his heart. I can't get enough of going to the pictures. I cherish these moments, sitting in the dark, with the magical light coming from the projector behind me, wrapping me up in a spiritual place between dreams and reality, a place where I can be free in my thoughts and my heart. The Order of the Sisters of Benevolent Mercy took me in when I was une petite jeune fille of 3, when my mother had to give me up. A grand drama in itself, or so Sister Vincent tells me. I don't have any recollection of it, and it's too late to ask my mother, since she died in a fire afterward. All the records were destroyed. I swear Sister Ursula, the Mother Superior, has been there that long. She makes it her business to order me about. She has me working on my knees, scrubbing the stone floors until they bleed, or burning my hands in hot water in the laundry. She's so crotchety and mean. I don't know why she hates me so much, unless it's because my mother was an aristocrat. She'll send me to my cell for days without food or water if she finds out I sneaked out today. I conned Sister Vincent, but the movie theater is where I come alive, acting out roles where I can lose myself. I find the challenge of becoming somebody else exhilarating, which is why I hobbled my way to the private entrance at the back of the Théâtre Durand with a hickory branch I found as a cane, the long ivory lace veil Sister Vincent made for my confirmation day when I was 14, draped over my head and shoulders. It's my favorite prop. And blueberry juice rubbed on my cheeks. Burnt chestnut leaves, mixed with olive oil, ring around my eyes for dramatic effect. And voila, I'm a woman of an indeterminate age, as Sister Vincent would say. I may be only 16, but motion pictures have taught me so much about life. I can play anyone. Every time I say that, the sister smiles and rolls her eyes. I love the jovial nun so much. She's kind, and the reason I haven't run away from the convent yet. She helps me slip away to the cinema, finding excuses to bring me with her when she goes into town to buy fresh lamb and apples and pears for the convent kitchen. I left her in the textile shop, ordering silken and linen thread and pins to replenish the cupboards to make the beautiful handmade lace the sisters are known for, which gives me at least 20 minutes or so before she comes looking for me. I rush into the darkness of the theater in my usual wild manner and bump into a large man standing off to the side near the stage. I can't help but sneak a peek at the stranger when he steps into the light streaming in from the creaking iron door. I get a good look at him. Heavy-set, wearing a white Panama hat with a black satin band pulled down low over his face, a dark gray pinstripe suit like I've seen in the gangster flicks. The strong smell of his lit cigar makes me hold my breath. "Pardon, madame." He tips his hat, respectful. "May I be of assistance?" I giggle. He bought it? Bon, he thought I was an old lady. wrinkling my nose, and completely in character, I say in a raspy voice, "No harm done, young monsieur." I stifle a giggle and go about my way, limping for effect, knowing how you make an exit is just as important as your entrance. It is, I'm proud to say, a success. I'm curious why a patron would stand in the wings where he can't see the screen very well. The cozy theater holds about 150 moviegoers and has a small stage platform in front of the screen for live acts. I toss my braid over the other shoulder and forget about the stranger. I hover off to the side of the screen upstage where I'm nearly invisible in the dark. Once I see what's happening on the silver screen, I can't look away. A fancy party with beautiful people having such a lovely time flashes before my eyes. Flappers in beads and fringe and their beaux in black tuxes, smoking and flaunting champagne flutes and whooping it up at a supper club. We can't hear their laughter, but the organist loosens his collar, foot-stepping on the pedals, hands flying over the keyboard to keep up with the raucous goings-on up on the screen. His lively tune begs to be heard over the audience, filled with rowdy kids, whistling and hollering. It's too much for two elderly ladies. Shaking their heads, they get up and leave in a huff, while I see a man sneaking a flask in the last row. I ignore them all. I love this film. I've seen it 5 times. I know all the parts. I can't resist tossing down my fake cane and whipping my lace shawl around me in a saucy Spanish swirl, though no one can see me in the darkness. I start tapping my black flats with the white button straps on the wooden floor, saying the dialogue on the title cards between the frames I've memorized in a loud whisper. No one can hear me, while pushing away cigar smoke creeping into my face. I look over my shoulder and see the man in the Panama hat huddling with Monsieur Durand and pointing to me. I don't care. I don't care about anything but playing the part of the wild flapper. I dance around the small stage in a tight circle, my daring do shielded by the coveted black shadows hugging the screen in a cool embrace. Sweaty bodies, wild silent laughter. It's all there on the big screen. And I'm in it. Yes, I'm in the scene. Losing control, loving it, lifting the skirt on my ugly gray convent frock, not caring if my left garter wiggles down my leg, and my tan cotton stocking with it. No one can see me in the dark. Monsieur Durand and the man in the Panama hat wouldn't be able to make out more than my shadowy figure. And the first row of seats is far enough away, I disappear in a blur. I'm dancing, acting out the lead role, filled with the exhilarating awe of being in the moment, reaching that pinnacle of complete loss of self where nothing can touch you when you throw yourself down into the abyss and you become that character. Till the reel of film breaks, thrusting the theater into a mesmerizing darkness. The lights come on in a snap, bright, insistent electric eyes beaming on everyone in the theater, but none more insistent than on finding me. Spotlights, hitting me in the eyes. Me, standing there like a puppet on stage with her strings cut. My cover of darkness blown, holding up my skirt, revealing my bare thigh, my cotton stocking puddling around my ankle in that ridiculous makeup I put on. I imagine my blue-red cheeks and the charcoal rings around my eyes glowing like the girl I saw in an old vampire film when Monsieur Durand ran a special showing before Lent last year. Scared me out of my drawers. Now I'm scared out of my drawers again. Because my secret's out. My acting secret. Sure, I've seen kids snicker at me when I'm acting out scenes in the back of the theater, tossing their leftover rotten vegetables at me instead of on the screen. Monsieur Durand forbids tossing smelly food at the stage, but everybody does it. It's one thing for me to let myself go and act in the dark when no one can see me, when no one can judge me, to fly high in my dreams. I always land back on my feet when the lights come on. But to expose myself in front of everyone, like a tawdry fan dancer, has set me on a new compass. That if I want to become an actress, and I do with all my heart, I can't hide anymore. I have to face the audience, show them what I'm made of, do something to entertain them while ignoring my state of undress until Monsieur Durand changes the reel. So I do it. What I was born to do. I'll either make a complete fool of myself or find my footing as an actress. I clear my throat, then go into a speech like I'm reading from a placard on the screen. The film will resume in a few minutes, mesdames et messieurs. I begin with a booming voice and a grand gesture. Ladies, please remove your hats. Gents, no smoking, please. Ah, go home, Sylvie. Yeah, go back to the convent where you belong. You ain't no actress. Get out of here. I bristle inside, wanting to cry at their insults, shut down, and pretend none of this ever happened. I can't. It means too much to me. My soul has been crying out to act in front of an audience, and though this is the most god-awful way to do it, I can't stop. I love the spotlight, wrapping me up in a warm embrace, a hug that feels so good, giving me what I never get, attention, just for me, as if I am somebody. I don't back down, even when I hear someone yell, "Let her have it!" I duck, but not fast enough. A big, juicy, rotten tomato hits me square on the shoulder, then another. I don't stop. I march up and down the stage, dodging tomatoes. Then a soggy cabbage lands at my feet. I keep going, acting out the scene in the film as I memorized it, reciting every line on the title cards without taking a breath, giving it my all, the organist getting into the spirit and piping out a lively tune, keeping up with me beat by beat. Then the lights go out, and the screen behind me lights up, and the film resumes. But do I get off the stage? No. The rush of doing what I've yearned to do is too strong an addiction. A sugar high that won't quit. I blink, glancing down at my hands, my gray uniform, the flickering lights from the movie projector dancing over me, tomato juice running down my cheeks and mixing with my tears. I don't wipe them away. I look out at the audience, hands on my hips. In a saucy voice I say, "You run out of tomatoes?" I smell a mix of human sweat and moldy cabbage as I cross downstage and leer at the audience. I hear mumbling and snickering. Good. Now we can get back to the film. Monsieur Durand so kindly allowed you to attend for a nominal fee. Moving in a slow waltz across the stage in front of the film, I become the human shadow of the actors on the screen, the flapper and the playboy, performing their jazz baby antics in a nightclub scene bigger than life behind me, toying with the act of love and seduction with their body movements, their eyes, their lips. I mirror every gesture, every movement. I've watched the film 5 times and memorized the title cards, so it's easy for me to recite the dialogue loud and clear like the film does have sound. Flapper with headband plays hard to get. Playboy offers her champagne. "Monsieur, you are too kind." "And you are so beautiful." "How do I know you won't take advantage of me if I drink the champagne?" "You don't." "Now you intrigue me." "Mon Dieu." "Go home, Sylvie." "No!" Someone yells in a loud voice with such authority, a hush comes over the audience. "Let her go on. She's good." "Thank you," I say to my unknown benefactor, giving him a wave. I can't see who it is, since the theater seats are again sheathed in darkness. "I'm staying right here. You're all watching me, aren't you?" "No one's left the theater." I pace up and down the wooden stage, keeping their eyes moving on me so they can't look away. "You're glued to your seats because you can't not watch me. I make you feel something inside you, hate, pity, even envy because I've got the guts to stand here and pour out my heart doing what makes me fly to the moon. I admit, I have a lot to learn about acting, but the raw truth is, I set off your emotions. To be a great actress, you need to show your feelings, not let anyone stand in your way. Sure, I memorized the lines, but to be a great actress, to make you, the audience, feel the depth of the character's emotions, you have to suffer. To know the heartache when you cry yourself to sleep at night because it's lonely and you don't have anyone to snuggle up to, and it's so cold your toes freeze, or so hot in summer the air is as stifling as a tomb. It's made me tough. And not anyone, not even you out there with your insults and rotten tomatoes are going to stop me. I pick up a mushy tomato and hold it up high before tossing it down on the stage and squashing it with the toe of my shoe. I make this promise right now. Someday, you'll see me up there. I gesture toward the screen with the partygoers dancing and boozing. And you'll have to pay to see Sylvie Martone on the big screen. Remember that when I'm a big star and you're still sitting in the last row. Dead silence. I tap my tomato-juiced toe on the stage, giving them a moment to think about what I said. Brave words, but I'm not waiting to see what happens next. I spin around on my heel and head for the back exit. My film career lasting not even 24 minutes. The length of a one-reeler.
It took real guts to make that speech, mademoiselle. After those rabble-rousers kicked you around like a dead toad.
I feel a tug on my arm and smell the cigar smoke before the man blows it in my face. I don't cough, though I want to. I recognize that voice. He yelled at the audience to let me go on. I sense it's more important I put all my attention on him, give him a pious nod for saving my butt. I look up slowly, not surprised to see the man in the white Panama hat. Thank you for what you did, monsieur, but it won't do any good. They'll do it again the next time I sneak into, come to the theater, and they'll bring even more rotten vegetables. I wrap my lace shawl over my face. I have to go. I try to be polite, as Sister Vincent taught me, but the good sister is probably frantic, waiting for me, saying a novena, wondering what mess I've gotten myself into. The sister often makes excuses for me, but today I dread showing her my uniform, soiled with seedy tomato mush.
You've got real acting talent.
I stop. Me, monsieur?
I've been watching you. Sylvie, n'est-ce pas?
I nod. Yes?
At first I was merely amused when I saw you acting out the scene in my film.
Your film? My pulse races with a different kind of excitement than I'm used to when I'm called into Sister Ursula's office for being late to Vespers.
But that performance on stage, the way you grabbed the audience by the throat, pulled every emotion out of them and didn't let them go.
He smacks his fingers against his lips.
You were magnifique.
Who are you, monsieur? I beg to ask, my head aching with the downside of my exuberant high crashing, then soaring upward again at hearing his praise. Don't make fun of me, please.
Allow me to introduce myself, mademoiselle.
He takes off his white hat and bows from the waist, his cigar dangling from his fingers and dropping ash everywhere. I catch a glimpse of Monsieur Durand wiping his sweaty face with his long black cravat, but he makes no move to reprimand the man. In the next moment, I find out why.
I'm Émile Hugo de Ville, the esteemed and successful director of such films as...
He rattles off a long list of motion pictures, some I know, some I don't. But what's most important is, he said he was a film director. I try to get my feet to walking, but my fervor to leave the theater is gone. He proffers me a small white card, and with sticky fingers, I take it. I hold it up to the bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling, turning it this way and that, marveling at the elegant raised text on the pristine white card. Under his name, I make out an address in Paris, on Rue de Séville, and the name of a film studio, Delacroix Films. Are you really from Paris, Monsieur Deville? I sound like a country schoolgirl, because I am a country schoolgirl. I've never been to Paris, the Eiffel Tower, and the Moulin Rouge.
Call me Emile, he says, then continues. I often travel to villages and towns outside Paris to gauge how my films are doing.
He leans down closer to me, and I feel oddly breathless, as if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff. He tells me at first his only interest in me was that he thought me pretty enough to be a background player in his next film. But after my stage performance, I giggle. He calls it a performance. I call it my moment of liberation. I never expected it to last past this afternoon. I don't protest when he guides me out of the back of the theater toward his parked Citroën, as shiny as a tart lemon. He keeps talking about how he can make me a film star if I leave everything behind and become his protégé. It will take hard work, he says, and I'm buying it. Long hours, hot lights, scripts to memorize, no time for anything but the work and dedication. He doesn't let me get in a word. I couldn't speak if I wanted to, as he opens the passenger door and ushers me inside the plush vehicle. I should run, tell him I'm not that kind of girl, but I don't. I have no illusions about my looks. Except for my white blonde hair, I'm ordinary looking, taller than most girls my age, skinny with no bosom, and a deep dimple in my left cheek, Sister Vincent says, means I was pinched by an angel when I was born. Now I feel more like the devil is after my hide because I want to go with him. Want it badly. I don't protest when Monsieur Deville puts the motor car into gear and off we go.
I see a great future for you, Sylvie. What did you say your last name was?
He asks out of curiosity. Martone? Sylvie Martone?
It has an elegant ring to it, and perfect for a theatre marquis. I like it.
I grin big. Merci, monsieur. My mother was a grand aristocrat who fell in love with a stable hand, a dark, handsome stranger who wooed her, then mysteriously disappeared before I was born. It's his name I bear.
An amazing story, Sylvie.
He looks over at me like I'm making it up. I'm not. I sit quietly, my jaw clamped, determined not to budge with my story. Sister Vincent told me where I came from, though I admit her black rosary beads were tightly wound around her fingers, her lips moving in silent words afterward, but I'm sticking to it. The big, clunky motor car rambles over the cobblestone driveway behind the theater as I settle back in the plush white seat. I let go of my final bout of butterflies and settle in. Why did you pick me, monsieur?
I meet a lot of girls who want to be in pictures. But I see something different in you, Sylvie. An exquisite, platinum blonde, with fire and tenacity, as well as raw acting talent. What you need is my tutelage. I have connections in the film business everywhere and the savoir-faire to know what the public wants, and they want you.
What about my life here? The convent, the nuns who raised me. Sister Vincent might understand, but she reports to the Mother Superior. I make an anguished sound. Sister Ursula will forbid it. He winks at me.
Then we won't tell her. I'll drop you off near the convent, then you get your things and I'll come back for you, for after I complete my business in town. I booked a call to Paris to check on the times of my film showings in another town. An hour tops. If you don't show up, then I'll know you're not interested in being a star.
Oh, but I am, monsieur. I roll down my window to get some air. I stopped breathing a while back, and I feel lightheaded. Being in the films is all I ever wanted. I bolt up in my seat, panicked. I see Sister Vincent waiting for me outside the theater near the box office.